everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. And welcome back to my channel. Welcome to, I don't even know what to call this video, just middle grades I love. I have recently, in the past year or so, really been trying to branch out with the middle grades that I read because they are honestly a secret little world that you can just go into, and it is always a good time no matter what book you pick up because they are sweet and gentle and oftentimes the most magical places that you can be or read, you know? So over the past little while, I have encountered a few middle grades that I really love and would like to share with you today because I really recommend these. And this is going to be like part one of a two-part series because this is going to be middle grades I love, and then I'm going to be also releasing a video called middle grades I need to read, and it's going to be a great time. So stick around for that one. That one's probably going to be coming either next week or the week after, so watch out for it. Without further ado, let's just get into this. So I really cannot have a middle grade video where I do not talk about the Percy Jackson series. Now can I? Because this is just iconic and I love it so much it hurts. If you don't know what Percy Jackson is about, Percy Jackson is following a 12-year-old boy who one day his math teacher attacks him, turns into a monster, and his classics teacher gives him a pen that turns into a sword. And from there, we kind of go on this little adventure with Percy because he is actually a half-blood, which means that he is half god. And so he goes to Camp Half-Blood, and it's like a summer camp for kids like him to keep him safe. And in this book specifically, he goes on a quest to find Zeus's lightning bolt. I have never described Percy Jackson before because I've just assumed that everybody knows what it's about. It's amazing. Even if you don't really like super magical or mythical or fantastical books, you should definitely pick these up because they are so funny and so human. They are just a roaring good time. And I just adore them so much. And on the same vein, I also really love all of the Lost Hero books. So these are the first two that I'm talking about because, you know, we love Rick Riordan in this household, as you guys know. And both of these series are absolutely amazing. Yes, you need to read this one to read this one. I mean, you don't really, but if you don't, you miss a lot, you know, in this one, because this one is based off of the ending of this series. And it follows similar characters because Percy and Annabeth are in this one and they're a little older. They're like 17. In this one, he's 12. So like he grows up in this one, in this series, and then he goes on more quests in this series. And there's just something so magical about Rick Riordan's writing. And I need to read his other series, but I didn't include Magnus Chase on this list because Magnus Chase and the rest of them kind of are more in the young adult range. This series branches into that. I would say that this is like a younger young adult range, but I wanted to talk about it anyways. But yes, so this follows 7 demigods from both the Roman camp, or actually this specific book doesn't. This book follows Piper, Leo, and Jason. Piper and Leo and Jason are all at the school, and they all are half-bloods, and they've all been like put in this place by Juno, who is a Roman god, and Jason is actually a Roman kid, but all his memories have been erased. And this whole series is about 7 demigods who have to basically save the world. This one is about really just Percy who has to save the world. So like, you know, demigods saving the world. It's a good time. I described that so terribly, but that's fine because we're just going to keep going. On the same Rick Riordan train, we're going to go into his Presents. Now, I've only really read 2 of his books from the Presents, from his imprint that he has, but I have so many that I'm going to be reading because I absolutely adore this imprint of his. My favorite one is the Stormrunner by J.C. Cervantes. I absolutely adore this book, and I cannot wait to read the next ones. The third one, I believe, is released in October, so can't wait. This is about Zane, who lives in New Mexico, and he has been homeschooled for the past year because he was bullied really, really hard because of his disability. He has one leg that is shorter than the other, and so he has to walk around with a cane all the time because it gives him a limp. And of course, kids are ruthless, so they bullied him like crazy. So he decided, he and his mom decided to homeschool him, and so he's been homeschooled for the past year. But his mom, super excited, comes to him one day and says, "Hey Zane, we're gonna go back to school this year." And he is very disappointed about that. But he goes back to school, and at this school, he meets a girl named Brooks. And Brooks doesn't quite fit in at this school. In fact, she doesn't go to this school. She just showed up to talk to him because he is part of this super ancient prophecy that he's going to wake up the big bad god of death. Apuch is a god that's sleeping currently, and Zane is fated to wake him up, and Brooks wants to stop him. So it is super, super fun because there's a volcano in Zane's backyard, and there are like these creepy alien dead things that are like chasing him, and he has to go on this like cross country road trip with his cousin and Brooks to like save the day. There's a lot of deals with people that he shouldn't be making deals with, and it's just so good, action-packed, and incredibly well written. I adored this. And on that same imprint vein, I also really like Irisha and the End of Time. This is not a favorite middle grade of mine, but I wanted to mention it anyways because I do really recommend this one. It is, oh, by the way, Stormrunner is Mayan mythology, and Irisha is Hindu mythology. So it follows Aru, who is a little girl who just can't stop lying and creating stories, and she gets herself in this bind where a bunch of her classmates come to her house to confront her about these lies, and they say, "I bet you don't even have this magical lamp that you've been telling us about." And she's like, "Actually, I do. I'll prove it to you." So she brings them into the museum that they live above, her and her mom, because her mom is a museum curator. And so they go into this museum like before hours or after hours when the museum isn't open, and Aru accidentally rubs this lamp and wakes the sleeper, which sets off this whole chain of events. And turns out Aru is one of the ancient Pandava brothers, but actually she's a sister. So it's like a gender-bent Pandava brother kind of adventure, and it's really fun. The first one is like got a time crunch to it. I guess both of them do. The first and the second, the two that I've read, have like a time crunch aspect to them because they have deadlines to fix the issues that they've got themselves into. And each book, I presume, because this one you meet Aru and her sister Minnie, her soul sister, who is also a Pandava, and then in the second one you meet another Pandava sister, and you meet someone else who is also related to the Pandavas. And it's great because it's just this really dynamic cast of kids, and with each book you just see their personalities come out. I actually don't really like Aru that much. She gets on my nerves a lot, but she's so human and flawed that I think that's a perfect book for kids to pick up. And Minnie is like the Hermione on steroids. Like, she knows so much and she's so worried about everything. But she's really, really good. They're both like fantastic characters, and you guys should read these. You should just read all of the Rick Riordan Presents books because they're great from what I can tell. Anyways, let's move on from the Rick Riordan Presents and into arguably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I'm looking at Percy Jackson, considering myself right now, but at least one of my top 3 favorite middle grade series, and that is The Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. This series is so good, you guys. This is one of the first times that I've read this and gone, wow, I wish I had written that. And it just, like, it's so good, and it's been so long since I've read this first one, but it's just so good. So it follows 12-year-old Sophie Foster, and she has this ability where she can hear other people's thoughts. And at the beginning of this book, she's like kind of incapacitated by that because she doesn't know how to turn it off, and she's living in the human world where people think all the time and don't have like the ability to turn that off. So she's a little bit incapacitated by that, but one day she meets Fitz, and Fitz can do the same thing that she can. And it turns out she's actually an elf. And so Fitz takes her to their world, the Lost Cities, and she goes to school there. She meets other elves with different abilities, and it is just so good. And she's at the center of like this really big mystery plot because nobody knows how she ended up growing up in the human world, and nobody knows why that she has extra powers than everybody else, and she keeps like developing these powers, and people are also trying to kidnap her and like remove her from existence. Like there's a huge mystery plot around her, and it's just great because it goes through the entire series and they try to figure it out, and it's just so good. It deals with friendship and grief and loss and so many different things. They're just so spectacular. I love them so much. Please read them. I have not yet finished the series, but I need to keep going with it, and I will. But so good. The next middle grade I'm going to be talking about is Pages & Co. Tilly and the Book Wanderers by Anna James. So this is a slightly younger middle grade compared to the other ones that I have read so far. This one you could probably read to like a 7, 8, 9-year-old, or even a little younger if they're a little bit more mature, because it's just a little bit of an easier read. The text is bigger, there are illustrations throughout to keep you going, and on some pages, the words go down the page. They're like a little bit off and wonky. So it's super fun and really, really lovely. But this entire book just feels like a warm hug in a bookish environment. It is a love story to books. It is a love story to loving books as kids, and it is so beautiful. It follows 11-year-old Tilly Pages, and she lives with her grandparents in the bookshop that they own, Pages & Co. And she doesn't really have that many friends. She's on break at the beginning of this book, and she ends up one day seeing her favorite characters come alive in the bookshop. Anne of Green Gables and Alice in Wonderland, namely. And so she tries to figure out what's going on and how she can do that. And then one day Alice actually takes her into Alice in Wonderland, and she goes to the high tea with Mad Hatter and the Hare and all of them. And so she gets out, and she's also involved one of her, this boy who is the son of the baker from across the street, Oscar, and they become like kind of friends throughout this, and it's so sweet. But they both discover that there is something called book wandering, and it's this magic that you can do as a book wanderer, and you can go into books and stories, and it's just so good. And there's also a little bit of a mystery in the middle of this as well, because Tilly's mom disappeared like within a year of Tilly's birth, and they don't know what happened to her. So will she figure out what happened to her mom through this new power that she has? We don't know. Oh, but it's so good. I loved every second of it, and it's a super, super fast read. Like the audiobook, I think, is about 7 to 9 hours. But if you listen to it on double speed, you can get through it really fast. And if you read it with your own eyes, it can go really fast as well, because big text, pictures on the page. Like I think there's even a few pages that have like a picture on the page and the text on the next page. So super good. I cannot wait to get to the second one. This is just magical. All right, so the next 3 are books that I haven't really heard talked about on BookTube or the internet or anything. I ended up stumbling upon them just because 2 of them I believe I got from that online bookshop that we no longer love here on the book internet. I got them a long time ago before we knew all this stuff about them. I saw them and was intrigued by their covers, And one of them I was intrigued by the author because I knew of another book that he had written. This third one I found in a bookshop and I was intrigued by the cover, and so I picked it up and I really ended up liking it. So let's start with that one actually. So this is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. She is a Canadian author and this book is really, really good. So it is about Emmy. She is shipped off to a European boarding school when her mom one day kind of is like, I don't have time for you anymore. I have to do this stuff with my book and my life. So you're gonna go to school so I can live my life kind of thing. Kind of brutal. But so she goes to this school. Does it have a name? Yes, Wellsworth. And at Wellsworth, she discovers that her dad used to go to Wellsworth, who she doesn't know anything about. And there's like this mystery going on. So it's European. There's a mystery going on. There is a boarding school. Like, it's got all the recipes for such a good book. And it was really good. I ended up really enjoying it. And I think that the next book, which I believe has just been released in paperback, is going to be just as good. But I have yet to pick it up. And this cover is just so Halloween-y in the best way possible. Like, there's little skulls on it. If it'll focus on the skulls and not me, nobody knows, but yeah. The next one is one that I ended up reading, I believe, in my Vlogmas of last year because it is wintry themed, and that is Winter House by Ben Gutterson. This is another book set in a big building with a kid who's kind of down on their luck. She is an orphan. I believe her name is Elizabeth. Yeah, Elizabeth Summers. She is shipped off by her terrible aunt and uncle to go to the Winter House Hotel for the Christmas season, and she goes there. And again, there's a little bit of a mystery involved with this one, and it was surprisingly super, super wonderful to read. And again, it just felt like a warm hug because there's like books and literariness at the heart of it. And again, you have big, beautiful illustrations in it. It's just, I really, really loved this one. And throughout, the titles of the chapters are like those word games that you start with a word and then you write like a ladder of words underneath, I believe, by changing only one letter of the word at a time. So you start with wits, then you have wins, wine, wire, tired, time, and that like goes together because Elizabeth meets a boy in this, who I can't remember his name. He's like super cool and he also is super into word things like Elizabeth, and it's just really lovely. And this cover is so pretty because like you can't really tell, but there are little windows into the hardback underneath, which is super fun. I love these covers so much, and like the naked cover of this book is so beautiful. I just adore it. It is the inside of the hotel, and I guess scene on the back is so pretty. Anyways, that's another one that I really recommend. I have a thing for middle grades that are like set in a school or hotel or in a big building somewhere that have like books at the center of it and have like a little bit of a mystery aspect. I just have a thing for it. And the last middle grade that I'm going to talk about today is one that I recognize the author from a different book, but that I haven't read. I've just seen that book a lot of places as like something people recommend. So I picked up this book specifically because I wanted to try the author, and this book sounded really cool, and that is The Revenge of Magic by James Riley. So this is the author who wrote The Story Thieves. If it would focus on those books. Anyways, yeah, so he wrote The Story Thieves, and this particular book was very, very cool. It deals with a magical school again, so, which is super fun, but it's a little bit of a different magic school because it's a little bit more military-esque, and the concept is really interesting. So 13 years ago, various books of magic were discovered all around the world. And only those born after Discovery Day or on Discovery Day have the power to use this magic. And I believe that if you were born on that day specifically, but like in years after that, you have more power than the other kids that are born after that day. So it follows Fort Fitzgerald, who one day is on a little trip with his father, and they go to the Washington Monument, and that day a bunch of giant hands come out of the earth and steal his father away. So Fort goes through an intense episode of depression and PTSD for like 6 months. Then he gets recruited by this really wacky teacher guy, Dr. Ops, who invites him to be part of this school. And it's got like, again, a mystery aspect in the middle of it. He's trying to find his dad. He's trying to figure out what happened to him. You know, I just love books like this. But yes, I really enjoy this one, and I cannot wait to find the next ones and get my hands on them. Anyways, friends, that's it from me today. Make sure to watch out for part 2, where I discuss the books that I really need to read in the coming months, the ones that I'm super excited about. But let me know down below what your favorite middle grade is. I am always, always, always looking for more suggestions to add to my TBR. I just want to read all the middle grade books. I love them so much. They have such a unique magic to them. I love them so much. Anyways, friends, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in another video soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.